For many years, Jim Carrey has been surrounded by quiet speculation, shifting stories, and ongoing rumors that followed him both during and after the height of his fame. In more recent times, he finally addressed many of these subjects in a way he had never done before, and the reaction was immediate, intense, and widely discussed. What he revealed did not align with what many people expected, and it opened the door to deeper questions about his past, his career choices, and the life he has lived away from constant public attention. This is a closer, more detailed look at the experiences that shaped him and the truths that have gradually come to light. Jim Carrey was born on January 17, 1962, in the small town of Newmarket, Ontario. While his early life may have appeared simple from the outside, the reality inside his home was far more complex. He was the youngest of 4 children, raised in a cramped household where financial pressure was constant and stress was a daily presence. His father, Percy, once dreamed of becoming a professional musician. He played the saxophone and clearly had talent, but that path never became a reality. Instead, he was forced to take a steady job as an accountant in order to support the family. The work provided stability, but the income was limited and far removed from a life he had once imagined. Jim grew up watching his father leave for work every day, fully aware that something important had been sacrificed, and that realization stayed with him as he got older. At the same time, his mother, Kathleen, was dealing with long-term health complications that left her frequently bedridden and in need of care music. This created an atmosphere in the home that was heavy, quiet, and emotionally strained. For a young child, it meant growing up faster than normal and learning to handle emotional pressure long before adulthood. In the middle of this environment, Jim began to find ways to escape. One of the earliest places where he felt a sense of control was in front of a mirror. He would spend long stretches of time practicing facial expressions, stretching his features, and imitating people he had seen on television. What started as simple play slowly turned into something deeper. It became a coping mechanism, a way to process the world around him. By the age of 10, he believed in his ability enough to write a letter to Carol Burnett, telling her that he was already skilled at impressions. When he received a polite response, he kept it as proof that he was on the right path. At school, his need to perform became impossible to suppress. He turned ordinary classroom moments into small comedy acts, imitating teachers and entertaining classmates. While some students enjoyed it, others did not, and he was frequently removed from class for disrupting lessons. His behavior made him stand out, though not always in a positive way. At the same time, financial struggles at home were visible. His clothes were worn, and other children noticed. He experienced teasing and bullying, which added another layer of emotional pressure. Even so, humor became his shield. It helped him deal with embarrassment, fear, and uncertainty, even though beneath the laughter was a child carrying more weight than most people realized. Everything changed dramatically in 1975 when his father, Percy, lost his job at Titan Wheels without warning. This sudden loss removed the family's only stable source of income. Percy applied to numerous jobs afterward, but none were successful. As financial pressure increased and savings disappeared, the family had no choice but to accept any work available. Percy eventually took a low-paying job as a janitor, and soon after, the entire family was working night shifts cleaning factory floors and bathrooms. The work was physically exhausting, especially for teenagers who were still meant to focus on school and normal development. Their living conditions quickly deteriorated. The family lost their home and ended up living in a small Volkswagen camper van near Lake Ontario. It was never designed for a family to live in. Jim and his brother often slept outside in a tent, even during freezing nights, waking up with frost on their sleeping bags. Basic hygiene became difficult, relying on gas station sinks for washing up, and food was not always guaranteed. They survived on whatever they could find, day by day. School became increasingly difficult for Jim Carrey. He was constantly tired, distracted, and emotionally overwhelmed by responsibilities far beyond his age. By the time he turned 16, he made the difficult decision to drop out of school in order to work full-time and help support his family. It was not a decision made out of desire, but out of necessity. At home, the pressure continued. His mother's health worsened, and she required constant assistance. After long shifts at work, Jim would return home and help her with basic needs such as eating, moving, and getting out of bed. There was no rest and no real separation between responsibility and survival. During this time, humor shifted from entertainment into something essential. What had once been playful expression became a way to endure exhaustion, fear, and emotional strain. Laughter provided brief moments of relief when life felt overwhelming, and over time, it became part of how he survived each day. However, even greater challenges were still ahead. One of the most painful moments came when his father, Percy, reached a breaking point after years of financial struggle and emotional pressure. He attempted to take his own life, and later admitted there had been more than one attempt during that difficult period. Jim witnessed this at a young age, and it left a deep psychological impact. It created a lasting fear that similar darkness could exist within himself as well. At the same time, his mother Kathleen's condition worsened further, and her reliance on heavy medication eventually developed into dependency. Jim watched her behavior change, sometimes becoming distant or emotionally absent. For a teenager already under extreme pressure, this created confusion and added emotional strain. During this period, Jim also began to experience internal struggles of his own. He became withdrawn at times and went through emotional lows. He later revealed that there were moments when he hurt himself not for attention, but in an attempt to feel something during periods of emotional numbness. Despite everything, he continued to rely on comedy as a shield. On the surface, he was the funny one, the person who could turn any situation into laughter. But beneath that image, humor was also a mask that concealed fear, sadness, and confusion. Over time, comedy became both an escape and a form of protection. When Jim Carrey first performed on a real stage at the age of 15 at Yuck's Yucks Comedy Club, the experience did not go well. He wore a bright suit chosen by his mother, who believed it looked like what comedians wore on television. However, the audience did not respond positively, and the performance failed to connect. Instead of stopping him, this failure pushed him to improve. He continued performing, though success came slowly. One of his early ambitions was to join Saturday Night Live, and he auditioned multiple times during the early 1980s. Each time, he was rejected, and in one instance, he never even met the show's creator. The message was clear: he was not considered the right fit. Eventually, Jim left Canada and moved to Los Angeles with very little money. Life there was extremely difficult. He stayed wherever he could, sometimes sleeping on couches in comedy clubs, surviving on limited food while constantly searching for stage time. Performing at the Comedy Store became a turning point. There, he was eventually noticed by Rodney Dangerfield, who recognized his talent and invited him on tour. This opportunity gave Jim exposure to larger audiences and valuable professional experience. During this period, he began shifting away from simple imitation-based comedy. Instead of only copying others, he developed original characters built around exaggerated movement and intense facial expressions, creating a style that was uniquely his own. Everything changed in 1990 when he joined In Living Color. The show gave him a national platform, and he quickly became one of its most memorable performers. Characters such as Fire Marshal Bill made him instantly recognizable. His physical comedy, extreme expressions, and full-body performances set him apart from everyone else on television. However, this level of intensity came with consequences. He pushed his body to extremes, sometimes injuring himself during performances and continuing to work despite strains such as ankle injuries. During this time, reports suggest he also relied on substances such as Adderall to stay awake and cocaine during certain periods to maintain energy under pressure. The workload was constant and physically draining. At the same time, his personal life began to fall apart. He had been married to Melissa Weimer before his rise to fame, and she had known him before success changed everything. As his career accelerated, he spent less time at home and more time immersed in work and public life. By 1995, the marriage ended in divorce, with Melissa stating that he was no longer the same person. Then came the explosion of 1994. In just 1 year, Jim Carrey became the biggest comedy film star in the world. He starred in Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber. All 3 films were major successes. For Ace Ventura, he was initially paid around $350,000, but after its success, his salary quickly increased into the millions. He became one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood almost overnight. His improvisational approach played a major role in this rise. He frequently changed dialogue on the spot, creating unpredictable and energetic performances that audiences responded to strongly. However, behind the scenes, he experienced exhaustion, mental strain, and even hallucinations during certain periods due to overwhelming pressure and overwork. At the same time, he became involved in legal disputes regarding the use of his image and characters, including lawsuits claiming studios had used his likeness without permission. The pressure continued to increase. For the cable guy, he earned $20 million, one of the highest salaries ever paid to a comedy actor. During Batman Forever, where he played the Riddler, tensions reportedly developed between him and Tommy Lee Jones, who played Two-Face. Their working styles clashed, highlighting the strain caused by his intense performance approach. He also suffered physical injuries during filming, including strains and accidents, yet often continued working. To manage stress and anxiety, he began using medications such as Valium. As time passed, Jim transitioned into more serious roles. During The Truman Show, he isolated himself on set to better understand his character's emotional world. In Man on the Moon, he fully immersed himself in the role of Andy Kaufman, staying in character even off-camera. This blurred the line between actor and identity, causing confusion among cast and crew. Around this time, his marriage to Lauren Holly ended, adding further emotional strain. He also underwent intense physical changes for roles, including significant weight loss and deep psychological immersion. Legal and personal struggles continued. During the filming of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, he spent up to 3 hours each day undergoing makeup and prosthetics, making the process physically exhausting. Later, in 2015, after the death of Catriona White, who had been in an on-and-off relationship with him, her family filed a lawsuit accusing him of involvement in providing medication and contributing to her emotional state. Jim denied the allegations, and the case was dismissed in 2018, but it still affected public perception. Over time, he began stepping back from the spotlight, appearing less frequently, and choosing a more private life. Eventually, Jim Carrey began speaking openly about his struggles. He discussed long-term depression and his use of medications, such as Prozac, over many years. He described emotional numbness, even during successful periods, and explained how constant performance pressure affected his mental state. He also shared his belief that experiencing emotional pain can sometimes be more honest than avoiding it entirely. During filming of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, he developed pneumonia, forcing him to slow down. Despite earlier thoughts of retirement, he returned for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, explaining that both practical and creative reasons influenced his decision. Looking back, Jim has reflected on how fame shaped his identity and made it difficult to separate his true self from his public persona. Over time, he became more open about these experiences, offering a clearer understanding of the life he has lived behind the scenes. With this honesty, his story now appears far more complex than the version the public first saw on screen.